I need to quit? In fact, that's probably the number one question that I get um, in my with my coaching clients who are having a challenging time with their job, not their career, but with their job, and they see that their career is going in a direction that they don't want to go, and or they don't know what's next for them, but they know that this job is not it. Yeah, tough place. Also, misalignment between your values and the organization's. That makes perfect sense. And that goes back to what we were just talking about for sure. When do I know it's time to quit? You got to know when to get out for sure. I appreciate that comment. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, as far as what you need to quit, for me, it's come down to two basic things. A lot of complicated discussions and situations and all those things, but I think it comes down to two basic ideas. When what you need to what you need to quit. Number one, you need a vision, and number two, you need a runway. You need a vision and you need a runway. Vision is, what exactly am I going to do? Let's say I get my wish granted, and right, today it's Thursday. So Thursday, 4:59 p.m. It's like, all right, packing up my stuff, or if it's virtual, saying bye to all my coworkers and whatever, making sure I get a good reference from the people that I worked with, and then that's it. What are you going to do? You need to have some type of plan, not even plan, strategy. I talked about this in some previous episodes. You need a strategy in place. I'm going to do this kind of hustle and this hustle as well, and this hustle as well. And these three things will get close to the income that I got from this job that I really didn't like. Or my vision is to pare down things and do such and such so that I can actually afford to figure out what my next move is going to be. You need some type of vision, some type of strategy, please, before you quit. One of the reasons that I got involved in actually starting a YouTube channel and starting the Bring Your Worth TV show is that there were a lot of people that were online who were encouraging people before the pandemic to actually quit their jobs without having a plan in place. And as a business coach for several years, and even in my own experiences, and my wife can attest, so many different ups and downs and so forth, it's like, no, that's not the message that needs to be put out here. Yes, your job might be in a really rough place, and you might be ready to move on, but that doesn't mean that the next step in the staircase of your career is built. You need to work on it. You can't just say, I'm done with it, and then just be at home watching soap operas. Like, no, particularly in this day and age, there's way too much competition, frankly, to if you're going after a traditional job or even a corporate job, way too much competition. Way too many people who are frankly hungry, some cases literally, to have those positions. So you have to be really careful as far as where you're moving on to. So as far as what you need to quit, number one is having some type of vision. Something. Get a strategy. Take your best friend to lunch, and then y'all can talk over it over some tacos or something. Do something. Figure it out. Even hire a coach like myself or somebody else. Figure it out. You need to map some type of plan. The second thing you need, maybe even more important, is a runway. A runway is important. Runway is the same thing that you think about with a plane. You know how a plane doesn't just lift off like a helicopter, it needs a runway. And depending on the size of the plane, the amount of passengers, gas, all this, I think that'll be calculus that's used to figure that out. They're able to establish, oh, it needs X amount of feet, or it needs a half a mile to take off. They have it down to a science. Y'all engineers in the audience know what I'm talking about. You need the same thing before you decide to leave your position. Now, runway actually came from more where I'm from with Silicon Valley and startups. And so when people say there's a runway for a startup or a business, that's the amount of cash that's available, resources, but let's just call it cash, and how long it will be able to sustain itself based on that cash. So if your monthly budget is $2,000 a month, and while you're working at your job that you just quit, you were able to put away around $10,000 for that. That means you have 5 months of a runway, right? Because 2,000 a month, which they call it the monthly nut, as they used to call it, 2,000 a month, that goes to 5 months. That equals $10,000. That's your runway. You need to know what your runway is. If your runway is a year, is your runway a week? What is your runway? You need to figure out what the deal is with that, because you can't be making these bigger decisions, especially drastic decisions, intense decisions, without knowing what your vision is as far as what you're going to do next and what your runway is, which is so important to it. My favorite book that talks about these things is by Jenny Blake, and she has an excellent book called Pivot. Came out quite a few years ago. Shout out to Jenny. Pivot, fantastic book. What she talks about, she used to actually work for Google, and now she's a business coach. She started business coaching probably a few years before I did, so she's been in the game for a while. Shout out to Jenny and all the great things that you're doing right now. She talks about runway, but she talks about it in such an excellent way that this is one of the books I recommend to darn near all my coaching clients. If you're going to figure out where you're going to go next, that's actually called a pivot. Again, another Silicon Valley discussion. That's called a pivot. When you're pivoting, then that means you're not getting out. Sorry for all the analogies, but that doesn't mean you're getting out the boat and then suddenly you start swimming. That means you have another boat lined up, and then you start to get the boats even, and then you check the balance, you get your oars, you bring your snacks or whatever you had in the original boat, and then you slowly go over to the next boat. That's called a pivot. Pivots, by their definition, should not be messy. Pivots should be smooth. You want your career to be as smooth as possible. I can speak on this because I've had some very messy moments in my career. And I was like, oh, maybe I should have pivoted instead of just jumping out and swimming to the next boat. Maybe there's sharks in there. Maybe I don't know how to swim as well as I thought I did. If you want to run with that analogy, before you quit, you need to have some type of vision, and you need to have some type of runway, some resources. Even if you're on the younger side, you're like, I'm going to move back in with my parents for a few months, and they're down with that, or you move in with your big brother or sister, whatever. Like, figure out something. And that could be part of your runway. That's okay. But you need to map that out. And more importantly, if you're depending on other people for your runway, you need to let them know. I talked about pivoting stuff and also mentioned the more on Jenny's book in my episode, How to Pivot Your Career. Highly recommend it. I think this episode also was around the time I was working on Career Remix, which is about a year and a half ago. And so, again, go deeper into these details. There's only so much time on the show. Just did a marathon yesterday, so I'm going to keep it brief today. If you want to go deeper into how you can figure out how to pivot from where you're at to where you want to be, check out this episode. Out of all the episodes I'm recommending, this would be, I think, the most important one if you're ready to jump out the window, right? In a good way. You're ready to get out the door. Well, let's work with that analogy.